The penultimate pre-draft episode of Locked On 49ers and the penultimate Brandon Aiyuk off-season episode, as everything remains possible on the eve of the NFL draft. Coming at you right now on Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks everybody for making us, as always, your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love the everydayers. We love it when you are subscribed. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or anywhere you are listening to your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side. So does Crocky. And we're big fans of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play.
I might have been a little too competitive today, hooping pickup basketball runs with my guy Desmond Bishop. And he is a nice hooper. Dez is a nice hooper. Obviously played linebacker for the Niners for a little bit, but 9-year NFL career. Won a Super Bowl with Green Bay. Shout out to my guy Dez. But, man, he can hoop a little bit. And I think I got a little too competitive because I am sore.
There's a little shuttle from the recruiters at Cal to the Stockton area, Croc.
Yeah. Well, he coaches with me at Edison. So
right. But, I mean, multiple Stockton preps.
Well, he's from
going to Cal.
He's from Fairfield, and he actually lives out there. I drive out there once a week.
Oh, okay. Just to get your hooping. Don't hurt yourself, dude. We're almost at the draft, man.
I know.
I'll knock you down a round or two if you get injured before draft day.
Can't get put on IR.
Dude, so I said it's the penultimate Brandon Aiyuk offseason episode, Croc. And I know some fans are tired of hearing about the storyline. Some fans can't get enough of the storyline. We always are asked questions about it. But in reality, Croc, there should only be really one more big episode about Brandon Aiyuk this offseason. And that episode will be either Brandon Aiyuk got traded or Brandon Aiyuk signed an extension with the San Francisco 49ers. Only one of those is the next big step. Now, we're going to have, conversations probably post-draft if the 49ers don't trade Brandon Aiyuk. If, we get rumblings about a new deal, rumblings about some other stuff. So he'll come up more often than one more time. But just a full Brandon Aiyuk episode like today probably will be talking about the latest reports from Mike Silber of the San Francisco Chronicle. The big story should be either he gets traded Thursday night or there's an extension signed at some point this summer. That's it. Those are the only two outcomes left for Brandon Aiyuk and the San Francisco 49ers. And they've already been the outcomes that were out there for the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk, right? So let's go to the reports from Michael Silver. And, I think everyone knows by now that he's probably a source that we should trust about 49ers things. And, he's got league sources. He's been around a long time, both the Bay Area and the National Football League at large, working for the NFL Network, NFL.com. Got tons of connections around the league and including inside the building in Santa Clara. So, quote from Michael Silver on Twitter, referencing his article at sfchronicle.com that you should check out and has a lot more. But he said, quote, "There's a sense among other high-ranking personnel executives around the league that Brandon Aiyuk, as one such executive put it, quote, is available for the right price," end quote. To this point, the 49ers have asked for a 2024 first-round pick. Quote, "They want too much," said the executive, whose team is in the market for a receiver. So that's big here, Croc, too. And Mike Silver goes on to add that anything is possible still at this point with Brandon Aiyuk. But the 49ers are listening to calls. So that's where we have to start, I think, point A with this whole conversation. The Nick Bosa stuff, it was like, nope, we're not returning that phone call, right? But as they did with Deebo Samuel a couple of years ago, Croc, the 49ers are at least fielding calls and listening to offers for Brandon Aiyuk, which means at some point, potentially, a team could blow their socks off, meet their requirements for what would provide more value than keeping Brandon Aiyuk and extending Brandon Aiyuk. Is that something we already didn't know is my big question.
I think we figured that the price tag would be high. Like, what picks were we talking about? Jacksonville Jaguars pick 17 overall. And then you'll have a lot of people say, well, there's no way Jacksonville or anyone else gives that up. And the response to that should be, well, the 49ers are perfectly fine with you not giving that up, so they don't have to trade him away. Like, you would have to go outside of whatever you're comfortable with giving up for a receiver. You'd have to go outside of that to get Brandon Aiyuk. And the 49ers don't want – this is the part we keep saying it, but the 49ers do not want to trade Brandon Aiyuk. This is not a Stephon Diggs Buffalo Bills situation or Stephon Diggs Minnesota Vikings situation where it's like, this guy's disgruntled. Get him out of here. This is not that. This is just contract negotiations. And can we get it done? But in the process – if you can figure out a way to where you kind of take them off of our hands, okay, but it's going to cost a lot. And same for Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk wants to be a 49er. He wants to win. He wants to play for a competitive team. But like all else, businessmen and people in sports also want to get compensated what I'm worth and what the other people who are doing the same thing as me and maybe not as high as the level or maybe slightly above, I need to get paid in comparison to those guys. And that's where the hang up is right now. But this isn't about Aiyuk or the 49ers not wanting to, be a part of this thing at starting next season. And that's why I think the price tag is as it should be. Very high and high enough to where people are very uncomfortable with giving that up.
This does feel a lot like the Deebo Samuel situation. And do you remember, Croc, right before the draft, there was a lot of Jets fans in our mentions, and they were like, Jets GM Joe Douglas does not get taken in trades. This is what the Jets are going to give up and get Deebo Samuel. It's going to be this and that and this. There's no way the Jets are going to give up the 10th pick or whatever else the 49ers are asking, right? And what was our response to those Jets fans, Croc?
Then you won't get them.
Good, then you won't get them. Completely fine. Joe Douglas won't get taken, and the Niners will keep Deebo Samuel. What happened? The Niners kept Deebo Samuel after Joe Douglas made his best offer, which was not good enough for Deebo Samuel. But they were listening. This is the exact same scenario right now going into this draft as it was 2 years ago with Deebo Samuel. And I think it will probably end the same way. And that means Brandon Aiyuk does not get traded on Thursday night, and he does sign a deal this summer with the San Francisco 49ers. But it doesn't mean a team couldn't come stronger than they have so far. Going back to Silver's report, though, Croc, the part at the end, people are not saying enough about. So there's a sense that other personnel executives around the league think that he's available at the right price, right? But to this point, the asking price is a 2024 first-round pick, which I think is perfectly reasonable and is what they should be asking for, and more probably. It should hurt the team that's trying to trade for him. Quote, they want too much, end quote, comma, said the executive whose team is in the market for a receiver. Of course, that guy wants to pay less for Brandon Aiyuk. That's the type of executive that wants Brandon Aiyuk and is calling the 49ers, and he doesn't like the asking price. So up your offer, dude.
Peacock, you just bought a home in the Bay Area. You love your home. You guys just picked it out, got settled in. We're good. All right, Peacock, I'm going to come and offer you $800,000 for your home. Take it or leave it.
I'm not even going to return the call.
You know what I'm saying? Now, all right, Peacock, I'm going to come and offer you $2.5 million for your house.
That would be worth me hiring movers and relocating my family to a new home.
That's it. You it's not. Why would you sell me something that you are good with? I'm good. I'm comfortable, accessible to my wife's job. Got your podcast studio in the back. Hey, we're chilling. We're good. There's no need to get rid of this. But if someone comes in and offers enough, okay, you got me thinking now. It's like, all right, that's worth it there. And that's all this is. You have to make it worth it to the 49ers to give up a guy who was a big piece of them going to the Super Bowl, who was a guy who was almost 1,400 yard receiver, catching a lot of touchdowns, making big plays, catching long plays and key moments against the Detroit Lions where the ball bounced off somebody's face mask and he has a ladybug on his hand and he kisses the ladybug while he dives and then he dives over a guy and makes a catch, right? Like that's the guy. But if you don't feel like it's worth it to have that guy in your offense and give up a first-round pick, stop calling my phone, bro.
That's right. Next, a few more details from Mike Silver's article about Deebo Samuel, as well as more on Brandon Aiyuk, what that trade might look like now that we have a little bit more information on what the 49ers are asking, plus what they might settle for potentially, according to Mike Silver. We'll get into that next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights. I've got some wiper blades for my vehicle. Whatever it is, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. And with over 122 million parts for that car, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So part of this report from Mike Silver, and it's definitely a must read. And, when it comes to the 49ers, especially intel on the draft and free agency and things, he's someone you're going to be wanting to read if you're a 49ers fan. And he goes on to say that the asking price is well north of $25 million per year. And as we know, the most recent deal signed by what we thought was a pretty good comp for what Brandon Aiyuk should ask for, plus $1 basically, is a small percent raised over the top of what Devontae Smith just got from the Philadelphia Eagles, is the 3-year extension of $25 million per year. That 3-year extension begins after his 5th-year option, which is the 5th-year option is the year that Brandon Aiyuk is on right now. Devontae Smith is 1 year behind Brandon Aiyuk. He was in the 2021 draft instead of the 2020 draft as a first-round pick. So, shout out to Steph in the house. Had fun chatting with Steph on the new OT with BP, Overtime with BP, Brian Peacock channel, which Croc and I will be going live during the draft on. So make sure you are subscribed to OT with BP here on YouTube. It's YouTube only. Croc and I will be going live during the draft. Of course, we'll have Locked On 49ers episodes after the 49ers draft picks as well. We'll be going live in the second round on Eric Crocker's channel. So make sure you are subscribed to those on YouTube for that live action during the draft this weekend. So well over $25 million per year. So that's where we start to get in the area where, why would the 49ers trade Brandon Aiyuk? Well, he's asking more than they're willing to give up. If another team is willing to do that, it's the DeForest Buckner thing, right? So we've been through this now with multiple off seasons for the 49ers. There's the Nick Bosa category, which we are not returning calls. That deal's going to get done, even if it's the day before the season starts, because he holds out all the camp. And then there's everybody else, which is, there's a price, but you probably won't meet it unless you are the Indianapolis Colts in 2020 that said, okay, bet, here you go. Here's number 13 overall, and we're going to pay the guy. And the 49ers said, well, okay, you met the price. And nobody did for Deebo. Will anybody for Brandon Aiyuk is the question right now. A first-round pick. What does that mean? Let's say the Buffalo Bills pick 28. I don't think I take that, Croc. You pick 20. John Lynch just said he has 22 first-round grades in this class. Maybe if one of those 22, and this is where there's an ebb and flow to all of this, because when it's just an unknown, whatever, run-of-the-mill first-round pick in a future year, I have no idea what that pick is going to end up being. Well, on Thursday night, not only do you know where the team's picking, once they're on the clock, you know who's on the board for you to potentially take. So if one of John Lynch's 22 first-round grades is still available at, say, pick 28, and the Buffalo Bills call John Lynch, maybe that would be enough to get it done, because one of the players that's in a tier that is worth it could potentially be there. Maybe one of those 22 is there in the second round. And that was another aspect of the article that I thought was strange. Is like, oh, they're asking too much. They're asking for a first round pick. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course they are. That's what we've been saying. We were talking about pick 20 for the Steelers, right? And late first round pick probably wouldn't even do it for me for Brandon Aiyuk. But again, it depends on who's on the board potentially, because if it's the same guy you would have taken at 20 and he's there at 28, well, what's the difference? You're getting the same value you would have if you traded him yesterday for the 20th pick, if you're just going to draft the same guy you would have taken at 20 anyway. So the value could be there. But he mentions potentially a second round pick getting it done, maybe a package of picks that equals a first round pick. And then I start looking around and I see the Washington Commanders got 2 picks early in the second round. They got 36 and 40. What could a team put together a package? Could one of those 22 first round guys be there for John Lynch at 31? And then at 36, again, Washington's on the clock. And the last one of his 22 is still there potentially. Could that get it done? Plus another pick or something like that. So there's a number of ways I think it could still get done. And it's not a deal that looks like, wow, 17 plus a player, or something insane. But it would have to be the right player on the clock at the time Thursday night to likely get that done. And it just seems really unlikely, Croc. If this gets done, what do you think that it looks like on Thursday night?
I think that maybe, like you said, the right players on the board. I think Dr. Steve Brule here in the chat says, I keep saying, what's in it for the Niners? How does trading Aiyuk make the team better this year or next? So I have 2 ways to look at that. The first way is, on paper, when you trade DeForest Buckner, does it make the team better?
If you say again, if you trade DeForest Buckner,
you trade DeForest Buckner on paper, like, does your team get better when you trade DeForest Buckner? Does the 49ers get better?
You don't trade one of your best veteran players and immediately be better.
Right. And I think 3 out of the last 4 years they've been in the conference championship. And the only year they didn't is everybody was hurt. So right. I don't think the trade made them better, but hey, we're a good football team and we went on to go to 3 straight conference championship games and a Super Bowl. So that's one way of looking at just that from standpoint, like, do you get better? But how can you get better? I would say this: if it is a pick in the teens, and a lot of 49er fans, we've talked about this a lot, they want that offensive lineman. They want that starting guy. Get McKivitz out of here, right? Well, we've talked a lot about, man, it's really difficult to just think at pick 31, the 8th best tackle in this draft is going to come in and just, I'm just going to beat out a guy who started all year for the 49ers where they went to the Super Bowl. So how do you get better? If you do get a pick for Aiyuk that's in the teens, and now you're able to take the 3rd best tackle on the board, the 4th best tackle. I'm not saying it makes the 49ers better in the sense of, like, you're losing a receiver, but you get cheaper. You get a prospect that comes in and starts right away. And then you still got pick 31, where now maybe you could take a receiver with that pick, or in the second round. But I think there's a way to work around still being really good, because, again, we talked as well as this about this. Your offense goes through CMC first. Deebo Samuel got 11 targets in the Super Bowl, not Brandon Aiyuk. George Kittle is still a 1,000-yard receiver. You still got Brock Purdy. Like, there's still a lot of good offensive pieces, even if you trade Aiyuk away. Now, again, do we want to trade Aiyuk? Heck no. But just answering the question, how does it make the team better? I think there's avenues to them still being a very productive offense without Brandon Aiyuk.
Is he such a difference maker that you can't overcome it? I think the answer would be no.
No.
Are you better immediately by trading him? The answer is also no. Could you be better in the long term by trading Brandon Aiyuk? And that's why the price is the price, because that could be a yes, depending on what you get back, depending on the player you get and what you're able to do with operating salary cap going forward with other positions and other players.
Could you see the 49ers being a top 5 offense without Brandon Aiyuk?
Yes.
I think so too.
Yeah, it's less likely and it's more difficult, but it's not like those 75 passes that Brandon Aiyuk caught are just going to be thrown directly into the grass by Brock Purdy. Right. Other things are going to happen. You're going to bring in another play. And we've seen teams like the Minnesota Vikings trade away Stephon Diggs and actually get better at that position. Like that's
hard.
You shouldn't expect that, but that could be an outcome, like potentially.
Yeah, that's what you would love to see. But then we saw Tennessee Titans, and it's like, we got Treylon Burks, didn't quite work out for us. He kind of hasn't been very good. I won't say it on my timeline because Treylon Burks, he follows me, but it hasn't worked out very well.
I mean, he would tell you that he's probably not had the start to his career that he would want. I'm sure Javon Kinlaw would tell you he didn't have the start to his career that he wanted in a 49ers uniform. And that 1-for-1 swap at defensive tackle absolutely did not work out for the 49ers. So, but they ended up getting a player later that was better, that did work out in Brandon Aiyuk.
And again, the main point here, they still went to, at one point, 3 straight conference championship games and a Super Bowl.
One other aspect to this that I'm going to bring up next, and it's something that nobody talks about when you're moving dollars around and you're shuffling around money. You trade Brandon Aiyuk, you get a first-round pick back, right? So that helps you build your team somehow, whether it's adding a wide receiver in the first round or late first round or second round or wherever it is you decide to add more wide receivers. I think they're going to do that anyway in this draft, most likely. But it also allows you cap flexibility, not only to sign your own guys, but what about a short term? That Brandon Aiyuk salary is gone. You're already under the cap. You could go swing a trade for a veteran player that could help you immediately in the short term. So let's talk a little bit about that and the report about Deebo Samuel, who will not be traded, which is something I think we already knew this weekend. Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime. The scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, you lift up your head, and you say to yourself, it's time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much money from my friends as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. You can smash landmarks with a wrecking ball. You can really ruin your friend's day on Monopoly Go, playing on countless Monopoly boards. You can also charge rent on all those iconic Monopoly properties. You can also work together with your friends, crack open community chests, and win tournaments and get extra rewards to climb those leaderboards. So get back out there, put your game face on, and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. So, Croc, how about this? If we're worried about Super Bowl window 2024 and getting better, you trade Brandon Aiyuk. You draft whatever with your extra first-round pick, and then your other first-round pick that you already have, and then your second-round pick and your third-round pick or your second-round pick, and then you sit there with pick 94 and you say, oh, you start making calls around the league, since that's what John Lynch has been doing all month long. And one of these other teams has been calling about Aiyuk. Well, it turns out they got a veteran player. That could be a starter immediately for you. Well, now you got extra cash to pay that guy. You trade your third-round pick for a veteran player. Well, now you replace some of the production that Brandon Aiyuk might have given you immediately with a player at wide receiver or another position. So that gives you more freedom there to utilize picks, utilize dollars in different ways. And so potentially you could overcome some of the loss immediately of Brandon Aiyuk. And yes, Brandon Aiyuk would absolutely be a loss. And again, said it a million times. I'm going to say it one more time. The best plan of action, I believe, for the 49ers to not trade Brandon Aiyuk unless you get a crazy offer and you are re-signing him, and then we're talking about Deebo Samuel next offseason potentially, and hopefully you've drafted someone who can develop into a 2-3 type of guy to take that pressure off of losing Deebo Samuel eventually, because eventually at some point you're probably not going to sign Aiyuk also to a new, or you're not going to sign Aiyuk now to a new deal and then Deebo again to another deal later. But maybe Kyle Shanahan says, I love Deebo Samuel too much and I want to do another deal after this one's over. So that's why I'm listening to offers on Brandon Aiyuk. Maybe that's where they are. I don't think that would be the right plan to team build this thing going forward, because I think Aiyuk's connection with Purdy is too good, and he just really fits what the 49ers offense needs right now on all three levels, especially the intermediate level of the field.
I do agree. But I guess my rebuttal to that would be, no, why don't you use them more? Why is he
Patience.
Why does he have the 7th most yards in the league, but the 30th most targets for a guy who's your first option in a passing game?
Yeah. Well, two things. First, patience. There's other good players. You have a role. Second, all those other players that also get touches make Aiyuk's job easier. If Aiyuk goes to the Carolina Panthers, becomes the number 1 wide receiver, I will wager, we talked about home prices, I will wager my mortgage that Brandon Aiyuk's yards per catch and his efficiency drops when he becomes the number 1 on a bad football team with not a lot of other weapons. You know what I mean? Like it's a guarantee that would happen. So it's not the worst place to be for a player, especially for a player's efficiency, to be on the 49ers offense with opposing defenses and defensive coordinators paying so much attention to your run game and Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. That's just the reality of it.
All right, so in a hypothetical world, somebody comes and they're like, you know what? We're just going to have to sweep 49ers off their feet. They've been playing hardball with us. We're like, we don't want to give up a first for Aiyuk. But, man, do we want to draft the 5th best receiver in this class and not know if he's going to be as good as Aiyuk? But we want a receiver to be a big part of his offense? All right, let's just trade pick 17 overall to the 49ers. And then the 49ers draft Fatanu, tackle out of Washington. And then the 49ers say, you know what, pick 31. Let's get somebody that's just a little different than Deebo, than Jawan Jennings, than some of the guys we have. Xavier Worthy or
McConkey. Yeah, Worthy.
McConkey.
Keon Coleman, probably not a Kyle guy. A.D. Mitchell?
Keon Coleman's not a Kyle guy first round. If you were saying like 5th round, 6th round, then Keon Coleman, all right,
second round, it doesn't have to be a first round. Don't fall into the pitfall of trying to replace him 1-for-1 with one player either. Now, if the right player's there, then sure. But by the way, Brandon Aiyuk was the 5th wide receiver drafted in his own draft too, right?
Yeah, but it's not something that with all these guys, right? It doesn't matter who, just any draft pick, you don't know. It is a swing at the fences. Even with receiver, it could be anyone. Like you'd think everybody before the draft, oh man, we're getting this guy, and you draft him. Whew, can't wait to watch him play. And then it's like, oh, he's in the doghouse.
Well, that's true. Yeah, we got to go through a doghouse period as well. So yeah, year 3, and wide receivers do take a little time, and they take time with the 49ers, which is I mean, again, it should cost probably so much it doesn't make a lot of sense for a team to trade Brandon Aiyuk, which is why he's not going anywhere, which is where we've always been with this, Croc. So is this report even groundbreaking stuff, right? Because I don't think we're in a different place than we were yesterday. We're definitely not in a different place we were yesterday with Deebo Samuel. The report is he's been assured by his bosses, Deebo Samuel, that he will not be traded before or after the draft. Which is a no-brainer that we already knew. Deebo Samuel, if he gets moved, is a next year thing.
I think it's good reporting from the standpoint of the conversation happened, right? Where they felt the need to let him or his representation know you won't be getting moved at all. Like you're going to be a 49er.
Yeah.
And if those conversations happen and Silver picked up on it, good for him to just report it so that, hey, these conversations actually happen. Like they had to tell him, like, bro, you're not going anywhere. You're
yeah. And everybody knows, they know, Niners know, fans know now.
But we definitely we
never expected that Deebo Samuel was going to be traded. It didn't make sense set cap wise. That was not the thing that was going to happen this offseason. It was Aiyuk or nobody basically. So that's that with Deebo Samuel. We kind of already knew. Does that tell us more about Aiyuk that they gave one guy an assurance he's not getting traded, but not the other guy?
So when the people come at us and it's like, there's no way he gets traded, it's like, well, that's not what John Lynch said.
John Lynch did say, and he did admit that they were getting calls, which we knew all along. They tried to act like, oh, we're not getting taken calls. Of course, people are calling. They wouldn't. The Steelers GM wouldn't be doing his job if he didn't call John Lynch and ask what the price was for Brandon Aiyuk.
Brad said, I don't foresee that being the case. Like, well, yeah, until somebody throws a first round pick at you. But you didn't use those words with Nick Bosa. It was just don't even call. You'll be wasting your minutes on your Metro PCS phone if you call asking about Nick Bosa. Don't even think about it. But with Aiyuk, with Deebo, I don't foresee it happening. We want him to be a part of the team next year. They start using these like code words.
Should the 49ers swoop up a wide receiver so the Chiefs can't get him at 32? George in the chat says Mahomes and Xavier Worthy would absolutely cook SFDBs. I don't know that McConkey wouldn't be scarier in that offense, especially with the way that, he'd probably end up being used in a similar way that Travis Kelce gets used. And I think that could be a potentially more dangerous thing. And he's got some downfield speed himself. But yeah, I mean, Mahomes with Worthy could be interesting as well. They're going to have an option to draft there at the end of round one, most likely. And it's going to be receiver or tackle for KC at 32. It has to be.
Here's a better question. Who would Xavier Worthy and McConkey rather be drafted by, the 49ers or the Kansas City Chiefs?
Probably the Chiefs. Probably the Chiefs, a lot less competition. And Mahomes, I mean, he's the GOAT in the NFL right now. I mean,
we don't really care about running the ball. We try to feed Pacheco just because he's really angry, and the more time he goes without a carry, he gets angrier. So then we give him a bone here and there. He's going to get his 12 touches. But outside of that, we want to throw the ball 40 times a game. So
what are the 40? Let's look at the draft really quick. This has got to be a short answer because we're done here for this episode of Locked On 49ers. The Kansas City Chiefs are the team that Niners have to figure out, more so than the Seahawks, more so than the Rams and the Cardinals, even more so than the Lions and the Packers and the Cowboys and the Eagles. It's the Chiefs. This last season was the opportunity to take down the Chiefs. They were a little bit down, especially on the offensive side of the ball. What's the thing in the draft that could help the 49ers beat the Chiefs, to throw it the other way?
More high-power offense.
So rather than losing weapons, they need to add weapons.
In the two Super Bowls, you had one Super Bowl where your defense held them to, they had 10 points in the fourth quarter. With 7 minutes left in the game, you had 10 points. And then in the next Super Bowl, you actually did a really good job defensively. Like, they had 19 points through 4 quarters, having to score, in OT. So it's like your defense played well enough in both games for most of the games to win. You need your offense to take you home in those situations. Heck, I just watched my Lakers yesterday. The defense for most of the game played well enough to beat the Nuggets. And then the offense just went cold. Like the last 5 minutes of the third quarter, then the start of the fourth quarter, they weren't making shots. Like, they just went cold. At some point, the offense got to take you home. So what would it take for the 49ers? Figure out a way to be more explosive against Kansas City Chiefs, because you're not applying enough pressure offensively.
And how do you help the offense? Well, you get an offensive lineman that helps you run the ball and pass protect better, or you get another receiver to help you break the game, right? A game breaker.
But not just any offensive lineman. Go get Fatanu. Go trade up.
Get a dude. Or, I mean, draft an all-pro center.
Or,
right? That's better than the ninth tackle, who's maybe just kind of a guy who's competing and you hope is a starter down the road. If that's who's available to tackle, don't force it. Everyone wants a tackle. Maybe the tackle's not there. Maybe you get a defensive tackle that harasses Patrick Mahomes. Maybe that's your path.
No, because you can't harass him enough.
Yeah, that's right, because the Chiefs hold in the Super Bowl and they won't get called. That's right.
They don't get called for it. So.
Yeah. All right, forget pass rushers. Offense.
Well,
Xavier Worthy. Keep Xavier Worthy out of KC. Draft him at 31. Keep that 4.2 speed away from Patrick Mahomes.
Even when you can try to harass him, the dude, he dropped back 15 yards and just threw the ball as far as he could to a spot, like on 3rd and 15. Yeah. This should have been ball game. Anybody else that's ball game. He dropped back 15 yards. Peacock, you're not supposed to do that.
I remember that. Didn't like it. You know what I like? I like all the listeners here live chatting with us in an impromptu Wednesday podcast, or for Wednesday morning podcast. We're doing it Thursday night here. No Winky Wednesday this week. There will be a Winky appearance, though, in our live draft stream. So look out for that. Make sure you are subscribed to the new OT with BP, Overtime with Brian Peacock channel. That's where Croc and I will be going live during the first round of the draft. We'll be doing Eric Crocker's channel during the second round of the NFL draft. And of course, we'll be doing Locked On 49ers episodes about all the San Francisco 49ers draft picks as well. We are almost there. Talk to you next time right here. Locked On 49ers.